record the sermon and go ahead and email it to me, and I'll file it directly for you.
Oh, yeah. You need to find a different file for mine. I think that's really what happened.
I
think you filed it in the trash and you deleted it.
That is your file. Whenever you send me articles or whatever, I just file it right there so I know it's there when I go to look for it.
In the trash. Yeah, but what if you just happen to just pull the trash and you got 200 things in the trash and you say delete?
Well, that's how it goes, right? First your money, then your clothes. Oh, that's funny. I need to make that other one then too. What was it called?
The one I just sent?
The Son of God?
For the second time?
No, for the first time. For you...
It was the second time. I think you deleted it in the trash for the first time.
I showed you what it was. There was no other way.
Seeking God, part 1.
There incomplete was a part 1 too, wasn't it?
No. That was complete, even though it was titled incomplete.
That's what I was... Man, you ruined my joke.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nice. You got to warm up a little bit. These people are like going to be bored the entire time. You want to have a little bit of excitement.
Well, on that delightful note. Hello and welcome to the Wordlover podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Wordlover podcast. James is your host.
We have an echo.
And I'm the lackey.
I'm your host, James Beasley, here with Josh Bonner. And this is where we bring theology into everyday life by discussing not only the scripture and different stuff like that as we have been, but just different things of... I'm just rambling right now. I don't even know what to say. Uzbekistan, because that was a pretty cool place. But, by asking the real questions that everybody might have. But we'll be back in Proverbs today, in Proverbs chapter 6. We've been moving along pretty well. I think we'd be able to move along a little bit faster if Josh wouldn't take so many vacations.
Yeah, vacations is what I've been taking. Everybody has to rest.
Well, on that...
A wise man once told me, if you don't take time to rest, God will make you rest.
Oh, yeah? Who's that wise man?
Somebody. Solomon.
But, everybody needs time out. But your break wasn't necessarily restful. It was actually packed with what we would consider missions, right?
Well, not a mission. There wasn't I guess there was a bunch of little missions. It was great. It was great. Really good.
I had one mission while you were gone.
What was that mission?
It was a mud run.
I have tried to convince James to join me in serving Christ, but he absolutely refuses to.
Well, no, I believe in getting, calling through the mud, which is what a deacon or a servant of the church literally does.
Well, that's exactly what we did.
Is it?
And it's basically like a big block party. And we were one of the partners. There was just all kind of different random things. But you just were moving the whole time. And it's hard to explain unless you've experienced that.
Yeah, and on the ones that I've been, it's hard to come back because it's real nice that it's not just what you talk about and what you do in your free time, but everything you're doing during the day itself
is 100% focus.
It is literally for Christ, and that is an awesome experience. But it's good to have you back.
Oh, it's good to be back.
Yep, I was trying to hold it together. I could not operate all the machinery like how you masterfully do.
Well, I'll tell you what happened while I was gone. We missed that week, and I had James go ahead and do a solo one, and he went ahead and recorded it, but then he sent me the wrong episode that he already sent me before, so it was a no-go to put an episode up last week.
I was trying. Yeah, pretty soon I'll be able to do this. I mean, but this is what you're an expert at. So.
Maybe that was a consequence of not going on the mission trip.
Or no, I know. I like to think deep about a lot of things, but I don't want to think too deep about that.
Okay.
Well, let's get into Proverbs chapter 6, and we'll be continuing on in this theme that he's been building on or into of adultery. Yeah.
Well, I mean, some of it's about that, but the majority of the chapter is not about adultery.
The first 15 verses are not. Then you have 35 verses altogether, so that means the majority of it.
Okay, James has got to try to get me on a technicality, but I'm going to wiggle out of it, and I'm just going to start reading.
Okay.
For your neighbor, if you have shaken hands and pledged for a stranger, you have been trapped by what you said, ensnared by the words of your mouth. So do this, my son, to free yourself. Since you have fallen into your neighbor's hands, go to the point of exhaustion and give your neighbor no rest. Allow no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids. Free yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, like a bird from the snare of the fowler.
Is that where you want to stop reading that?
Yeah, that's a good stopping point. Let's jump off there and.
No, I want you to go back and read that point of exhaustion. So, what translation are you reading from this time?
Whichever one you're not, apparently.
Apparently so. Is it your NIV?
Yeah. Go to the point of exhaustion. Give your neighbor no rest. What does yours say?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I guess that's the end of verse 3.
That is the end of verse 3.
Okay. The mine says, "Then do this, my son, and to free yourself, since you have fallen into your neighbor's hands, go and humble yourself. Press your plea with your neighbor. Allow no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids." That was verse 4. But that's pretty cool how they flip it around and reword it in the Bunner translation.
Well, I mean, it means about the same thing, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it would mean the same thing. But that's usually like in the Psalms we read or we hear about going to the point of exhaustion, about meditating upon God's word and actually memorizing his precepts. And here he's telling us to go to the point of exhaustion, to allow no sleep to your eyes or slumber to your eyelids until you've pressed your plea with your neighbor. So why such?
Why don't you flesh this out? I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it.
Why?
Well, give me an example.
An example of
wise. The whole deal. The whole package.
Deal. From 1 through 5.
If you put up security for your neighbor, what?
Well, I actually think this is it's not speaking completely against like going into debt per se. I think it's more or less doing things without actually thinking it all the way through.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is this applicable for a modern? You fit that in. Like, I'm not gonna go to my neighbor and ask him for like just overwhelming amount of money.
No, I don't think many people would, except for the bank or anything else. But
well, so you go to the bank and plead with them.
Well, it's
to the point of exhaustion.
If you're going to go to that, like, let's say you got this huge house and a huge payment, and that what you're doing is that you got this huge amount of money that you have to pay out every month, and do what you have to do to get things right and be able to come up with that money, which is where I go to, where it says, "Allow no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids," and that means do what is necessary to make the extra money, to pay that bill, to do what you need to get out from underneath that debt.
What? Why are we not doing that?
Who?
Anybody.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people are. I guess more people aren't, but I mean, you have a lot of programs out there like Crown Financial and what is that? Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey's a very popular one.
Yeah, very popular. That snowball, the snowball with your debt.
Yeah.
Which that does work.
Are you debt free?
I am not debt free.
So that's why you're exhausted so much.
No, I'm exhausted so much because I am diaper poor.
Diaper poor.
Yeah. But I think what this is speaking of is I actually came across, was talking with someone today about their, he was talking to me about sort of the situations going on in his life, but he was speaking of this person in his life wanting him to co-sign and do all this other kind of stuff, and they were not reliable people. I think this passage is warning us to think things through and to not just jump into helping somebody because we have a soft spot in our heart for someone, or because we really want family and your own finances. Well, then you're not really benefiting anybody, and you don't want to go into striking a pledge with somebody when you know good and well that they're not going to hold down a job, they're not going to do what their end of it, and you're going to be stuck with an additional bill that your family really cannot afford. And that's what I think this is. And if you've done that, you need to go to that person and say, hey, we're going to have to work something out. We're going to have to do something about this because I cannot afford this on my own. You obviously are not doing your end, or you can't afford it. So we're going to have to come up with something to make this better for everyone.
You're going to have to work it off.
Yeah. When Paul says, if you don't work, you don't eat. And
well, it's funny because the next part is to
the sluggard.
Go to the ant, you sluggard.
Before we actually jump into that, though,
consider it.
I do want to compare other things to this right here. That's why I do not believe that this is speaking about all death. Is because in Proverbs 20 verse 16, Job 17:3, and also 27:13.
Look at you.
Yeah, he speaks about, hey, I'm pledging myself for this. I am talking about actually putting myself in pledge or striking up a pledge of security. I don't think the Bible is against us doing that if it's necessary. It's just that we should not be doing those kind of things without a lot of thought put behind it, a lot of prayer and a lot of thought.
Well, that's what I was going to say, but you just took it right out of my mouth.
I'm sorry. Would you like to say that?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways to be wise.
The who?
The ant.
Oh, I thought you said Enoch.
Well, Enoch is wise too. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest.
There's no a cartoon that
Is
Queen
that
Ant was
what
bossing them all around.
You base your theology on a cartoon movie? That makes sense. Okay. And you're worried about the version of Bible I'm reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's powerful.
But what do you gather from that? What do you take away from that? Besides that's what the ant does.
Well, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Just in springtime and harvest?
Well, all the way around. And I also, yet it stores up its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. I think there's a lot of thought that goes into a retirement fund. And you think about the end of your life, and that would be like the winter season.
The harvest.
Right. And to have that all kind of prepared is a wise thing. And I don't know if I'm reading too much into it or.
I don't think you are. It's like it stores its provisions in summer. You know, like when you're in the good times of life and all that kind of stuff, you don't splurge over and beyond what you should be. It's not, you don't not have a good time, but you don't waste everything you have in the moment either. You know,
right.
Storing it up. So yeah, cool.
But you have to be ambitious enough to do that in the first place, which is.
Is that why they have 6 legs?
Yeah.
Because they're ambitious.
So I'm going to go and get a couple more legs sewn onto me so that I can work twice as hard.
So it's better to be a spider then.
Oh, yeah.
Or a centipede.
All right. Go ahead and read the next part.
Okay. We're picking up in verse 9. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a bandit, and scarcity like an armed man. Or you can, some translations may read it as, and poverty will come on you like a vagrant, and scarcity like a beggar. What do you think that's referring to?
Well, that it doesn't take much to fall to the wayside and lose everything because you put your security up for your neighbor.
Or if you think that, hey, I've got a little bit stored away, I'm just going to take it easy, I don't have to work as hard, and then all of a sudden you turn around and you've got a broke dishwasher, a washing machine that needs repair, 2 flat tires, and your taxes on your vehicle due. All of a sudden it's all gone.
It doesn't take much, especially with as much debt as out there, to get that far behind, and you will lose everything
quickly.
quickly.
Just think about it. Nowadays, if you don't pay your insurance on your vehicles, I mean that's almost like a death sentence to your driving, because they'll cancel your registration and possibly come get your vehicle and all that kind of stuff.
Just in North Carolina.
Just in North Carolina.
They didn't do that in Ohio. Like, you could get away driving for years without insurance until you got into an accident.
Yeah, you got into an accident. And they may have changed it by now.
I think there's a big focus on procrastination here, too.
Yeah, so why put off till tomorrow, which you can put off till the day after tomorrow?
Exactly. But that's
it.
It.
Who's that quoting from?
It's probably some cartoon movie.
Mark Twain.
Oh, exactly. That's what I was going to say, my next guess. No, because that's it too. Because you justify it in your head, let it go. Well, I'll pay that tomorrow and do this tomorrow, and then next thing you know, it's you forget about it, or it creeps up on you quick.
Or something else comes up that you might say, "Oh, I really need to do this first," and keep postponing it. But a scoundrel.
Wait, no, hang on, no.
I'm sorry.
A troublemaker and a villain who goes about with a corrupt mouth, who winks maliciously with his eye, signals with his feet and motions with his fingers.
Every time I read that,
what?
I just envision the baseball players.
What are you talking about?
How they always, how like the catcher's always wiggling with his, motioning with his fingers, and the coach is on the side flapping his arms.
Baseball is the epitome of evil.
It obviously is, because that's exactly how they motion each other.
Well, I mean, I can totally see that.
No, it's just that just what.
But the thing that sets it apart is who plots evil with deceit in his heart. I've never seen a catcher like.
No, that's the runner that tries to steal the base.
You're such a freak. Therefore, the disaster will overtake him in an instant, and he will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. Wow. Is that why? So, if you think about every movie that's ever been made, the troublemaker and the villain, he will be suddenly destroyed.
Loki came back.
He's like a chaotic neutral. He's not really a villain.
If you could just see my face right there, it's just like, I don't understand how he's not a villain. I can understand how his brother isn't just doing away with him. But
he's the god of mischief, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think he sets out to really hurt anybody.
What do you mean? He intentionally set out to, he killed one of his own, according to the mythology. He intentionally set out to do that with the mistletoe, with the poison arrow.
Are you talking about like real Greek mythology?
Yes.
Well, that's where we part ways, because I only know Hollywood.
Oh. But an interesting thing about this is that we're fixing to get into this next verses, but in 12 through 15, it's almost like he is painting this picture of this person or people, and he doesn't necessarily list 7 things out there, but he mentions a lot of what he's fixing to mention in the list of 7 detestable things.
Detestable.
Yeah, because he's like he.
Whoa!
What is this?
That is crazy.
Somebody should turn their phone down, folks.
Somebody needs to change their pants.
But he says, who goes about with a corrupt mouth, which is speaking towards the false witness and lying tongue, who winks with his eye, signals with his feet, motions with his fingers. It stirs up dissension, the feet that are quick to rush into evil, hands that shed innocent blood, who plot evil and deceit in his heart, a heart that devises wicked schemes. And then he always stirs up dissension, and which that mentions that too. And
well, so is it really God hates people who wink maliciously?
Yeah, if you wink more than twice, it's malicious.
What if you blink?
Well, that's not winking.
I'm blinking right now.
Blinking is 2 eyes. Winking is 1.
Well, what can be made out of these gestures? And who winks, signals with his feet, and motions with his fingers? Like, it's premeditated, basically.
It sounds like someone who has concocted a scheme, and they're orchestrating it by signaling, hey, now we're sneaking around in the shadows. Now it's your turn to go.
Oh my goodness!
Something is going on for sure.
But
let's get into those 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to Him.
Okay.
What did you?
Hot eyes. Haughty.
Yeah, haughty eyes.
Haughty
a
eyes.
lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deceives wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a man who stirs up dissension among brothers.
So how do you discern which one
is what?
Which ones that he hates and which ones are detestable?
No, they're all that.
Oh.
Because in the Hebrew, 7 means that this makes it complete. This is a list of what is detestable to the Lord.
Right, but there's only 6 that he hates, but 7 are detestable.
Yeah,
so
it's all the same ones.
But there's one, it would be 7. 6 and 7.
Yeah,
there's one missing.
No, they're all hated and detested. It's just a euphemism of saying this is a list that I'm writing this list to you to say that you need to stay away from this, and then they put that 7th one there and says, oh, by the way, this is the capstone. Like this is the 7 things that you stay away from. It's like the Catholic the 7 cardinal sins, 7 deadly sins. You know what they are?
Wrath, grief, James Beasley.
No, lust, gluttony, greed, sloth.
What verse is that?
Wrath, envy, and pride.
What about sloth?
I already said sloth.
What about gluttony?
Okay, I'm just repeating now. But what comes to my mind when I read that is this saying that these are the only detestable things that the Lord hates?
Certainly not.
Or is there other things? So is this a contradiction to Deuteronomy and Leviticus?
Well, I think that they all can be tied to others as well. Like you're not going to ever get so specific that it says God hates when you litter. But you can tie it back.
Well, you're supposed to be a good steward of the earth.
Exactly. So you can tie it back in somewhere.
But it's interesting, though, that a lot of the things that is specifically spelled out that he hates or that is detestable to him, they're generally characteristics within your soul or like more of an intimate expression of that physically. Those
translator.
Or a wrong expression sexually.
Huh?
It's like Leviticus 18 gives you a list of sexual misconduct.
Right.
And at the very end of that chapter, he says that these things are detestable before the Lord. And that this is the reason why he's driving out the people before them. So it's like, it's either going to be some type of misconduct. And Paul says that the one that sins sexually sins against your own body. And also that, he goes on later on in here, in this very one, he says that who commits adultery lacks judgment, and he does so destroys himself. So it's like you have such a disregard for how God created you that you're just going to throw yourself away in the most intimate way, and
So
have
it's
such a lack of regard for that.
The most confirming rebellion that you could ever.
I would probably say so. And then it's also the characteristics within the soul, which is, and how he says that the pride was found in Lucifer after he was created, and that's the reason why Satan fell. And pride is the root of all evil. And that's what is actually it begins this list here with haughty eyes. Pride is the downfall, and in pride is where you find all this other stuff. It's because you think more of yourself than you should.
So you're saying that from the beginning, haughty eyes is the first step, and you just spiral down?
You just spiral downwards from there.
Well, hands that shed innocent blood.
I mean, why else would you deliberately lie or bear a false witness to somebody?
To not hurt their feelings.
But why would you not want to hurt their feelings?
To not make them mad?
At?
Steve?
No. No, generally you do that so that you would appear better to them.
Because you don't want to hurt their self-esteem.
Touchy subject.
Well, no, but think about it. Like, seriously, are you going to say if your wife puts on a dress and you generally you just don't like it? It doesn't do whatever for you.
But generally,
do you say, "Oh, that's awful"?
But no, you generally don't do that. But why do you try to make them feel better about that, or
because you
not
love
to get
them?
In trouble? You love them, but it's also so you won't get in trouble or say the wrong thing, or that they won't be upset with you.
Well, I don't know.
Because you can't. Because if it was an honest and open relationship, they shouldn't be mad at you for really truly expressing how you feel about something.
What honest open relationships do you get away with saying to your wife that she doesn't look good?
No, see, that's the problem. It's not that your wife doesn't look good. It's that dress.
Right. Do I look good in this dress?
I don't like the way that dress looks.
Well,
I mean, no, because there's some colors that I don't like. Some colors I can't even see. So.
Right. Well.
But anyhow. And then why would you shed innocent blood or devise wicked schemes? All of this stems from pride of an exaltation of self. When I was also reading through this, several like modern day things stand out to me. And every time I read shedding innocent blood, there's one thing that always pops to my mind, and that is abortion. And that to me, that's the most. I guess that would be the epitome of that line right there about hands that shed innocent blood. But I don't know. That's a huge discussion in itself.
Yeah, you can read and like relate with pretty much everything on there. Like feet that are quick to rush to evil. Like if you think about like if a schoolyard fight, like all the people that are there are going to run over.
Want to go see it.
They want to see what's going on. What's this next?
Is that sort of like NASCAR, where everybody goes and they really want to just see the car wreck?
NASCAR is probably the purest form of evil that I've ever seen in my life. That's why I stay far away from it. We just lost two listeners.
Yeah, probably. Well, I see, nothing really against NASCAR or baseball.
Oh yeah, you gotta cover all your bases. Puns, we got them.
Yep.
Warning against adultery. So here we are, arrived at the adultery again.
So why do you think he comes back to adultery?
Because he was prideful and he's trying to tell his son what he's struggling with the most.
Trying to dig a little bit deeper there, aren't you?
Yeah, well, sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good overview of why he came back.
It's kind of fairly obvious that he was struggling with it, or maybe not at that point, but I don't know. I guess he would be struggling with it.
Would he really be? I mean, that's what I get in that time frame. If for King Solomon, when would you consider adultery?
I mean, when you're the king, you can make your own rules and laws and everything else.
But that also shows you that he understood what God anticipated from the beginning. Jesus said that when he was questioned about divorce and all that, he said it wasn't this way from the beginning. God made them male and female, and that they should be joined together, and man should not ever separate them. And that's how it was from the beginning of creation. And I think Solomon understood that in his heart.
But he had 700 wives.
Yes, and 300 concubines. Wow. Or was it the other way around?
And then he looked at his son with a straight face and says, keep your father's command and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Bind them always on your heart. Fasten them around your neck. When you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. For this command is a lamp, and teaching is a light, and correction and instruction are the way to life, keeping you from your neighbor's wife, from the smooth talk of a wayward woman. Wayward woman.
Yeah, and they would. It's just a lot of times I think we get captivated by either by lust or desire, or I think the younger people you can actually, or in the beginning of a relationship, we often, I think, disguise that as calling it puppy love. Puppy love. Woof.
What's is that all you got to say about it?
But he continues on. See, we're in verse 25. It says, "Do not lust in your heart after her beauty, or let her captivate you with her eyes." And it's interesting that he goes and he dives as deep into the motivation or the desires behind why this is even going on, as to say that don't even lust in your heart after her. And how Jesus points to in the Gospels that adultery doesn't start by the physical act of you cheating on your wife or the loved one, but it actually starts even way before that, when we lust after somebody or something in our hearts. It shows the depth of the wisdom that is captured in this book.
To like cross it off before it gets there. Oh boy. Deep thoughts. Do not lust in your heart after her beauty, or let her captivate you with her eyes. For a prostitute can be had for a loaf of bread, but another man's wife preys on your very life.
Wow, that's a complete different reading.
So
I like that.
Here we are. I'm going to take the off the beaten path
Loaf of bread
method here. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Read your verse again. So this is how mine reads. For the prostitute reduces you to a loaf of bread.
What?
And the adulteress preys upon your very life.
How does that make sense?
Read yours again.
For a prostitute can be had for a loaf of bread, but another man's wife preys on your very life. That's a good lyric. For another man's wife preys on your very life.
Well, okay, you expound upon yours and I'll expound upon mine. Even though they're saying that Hebrew can be flipped a bunch of different ways.
Well, I got onto this, and I highlighted it because it made me think of a conversation we had a while ago about lesser of two evils. For a prostitute can be had for a loaf of bread, but another man's wife preys on your very life. Why do you look at me like that?
Because I did just reread it again. You haven't expounded. Expound, please.
No, well, that's what, like, the lesser of two evils. Like, that's there. Like, he said that. But then I'm second guessing it now because of what your version says. Doesn't make any sense to what the point I'm trying to make. So,
well, for a prostitute reduces you to a loaf of bread, and the adulteress preys upon your very life. It shows how going into that kind of a relationship, you're only cheapening yourself, because all you are to them is a meal. All you are is their next paycheck, their next, even if they are getting a thrill, whatever, but all they are is using you to make money to live on. And that's exactly what a prostitute is doing. They're not really tied in. It almost speaks back towards Samson and Delilah. Delilah didn't really have any affection over Samson. She was a prostitute, a Philistine prostitute. What Samson, though, was head over heels in love with her. But what was he? He was actually reduced down to a loaf of bread to her. The only thing he was worth to her was money or paycheck. And to me, that's where I got from that. Because if you allow yourself to be just swooned by any old person, you're actually just cheapening the value that God has on you.
Well, that's a loaf of bread, but that's not the point that they're trying to make here. But another man's wife preys on your life. So that's fine to be devalued to a loaf of bread, but they're saying that if you commit adultery with another man's wife, that's on your head. Like that there's weight there, and that's the difference that I was trying to get at. But
mine says and, so I just took them together.
Yours would say and, to completely disprove my point.
I don't think it's disproving. I think as long as you take something beneficial from it. But
something official?
Beneficial.
This is Josh's official view on this verse, because that has a lot of authority.
But the adulteress preys upon your very life. And so, what do you think? You said because that was what it
made me think about a conversation we had where, is there ever an option for a lesser of two evils?
Well, that's what. In this regard, I don't think there is an option of a lesser of two evils. That both of these are evil.
Well, the way that your Bible reads.
Well, even with yours though, because it's all dealing with the marriage bed. It's all dealing with that same relationship. It's either one of them is not violating a marriage covenant, but it's still violating the marriage bed, because that act, that what is going on is still reserved for one man and one woman for life. So any way you do it, if it's a prostitute outside of marriage or with an adulteress or inside of marriage, it's still, both of them are a violation of how God would have you be conducting yourself.
And is it wheat bread, or, I mean, there's some fancy bread out there.
I don't think it matters, because gluten is not good for you.
Don't even get into that. Can a man scoop fire into his lap without his clothes being burned? Can a man walk on hot coals without his feet being scorched? So is he who sleeps with another man's wife. No one who touches her will go unpunished. See, and that just says to me, like, the focus is another man's wife. So you're free to go and
no, that's a good one. Bleep. Cut that one.
Let's try to
cut that train of thought off.
Be careful how I worded that.
Yes. But one thing I do like about the Hebrew and also the Greek is that wife and woman are the same word. Man and husband are the same word. It's not either or. And a lot of times the context you can bring it out, especially if it's speaking of an intimate relationship. Knowing Scripture, we understand that is supposed to be husband and wife. But it's really not. It's really man and woman. So I don't really think it's just limiting it to another man's wife. I think it's just another woman, or a woman, period, that is not your wife.
Right.
Because if you're not married, you don't have a wife. So that person you're sleeping with ain't yours. Just like if you were married and you're sleeping with another man's wife, it's the same regard.
Well, I just want to cover myself and say that I'm not looking to go get a prostitute. I'm just trying to think from different perspectives and really absorb and digest this a little bit.
But no one who touches her will go unpunished. I think he gets into that a little bit later. I mean, at the end of the chapter, but
he really paints a picture, doesn't he?
He paints a picture like Picasso.
Oh no, the husband like clicking a shotgun.
He'll make you into a Picasso.
Yeah, exactly.
But like Hebrews says that God will not hold the one who violates the marriage bed. He will not hold them guiltless. That he will punish and he will bring vengeance against that. And that's a real. It should be an eye opener too, because of how much he's dealing with it here in Proverbs, but also of what this is a picture of in the New Testament. Because the marriage covenant is a picture of our relationship with Christ, with God. And that intimacy, or that should be something that's protected. And what he's getting at in all of this is that wisdom should show you that you should not be treating that kind of a covenant as a trivial thing.
Now, all that you're saying, how does Solomon justify polygamy? Like, how do you how does that even happen? Is it just because you're a king and that's what you like?
That's what society.
Women
was doing.
are almost their possessions, basically, right?
A lot of times they were either viewed or treated that way. I mean,
but like, how do you? So you just got done saying how important a marriage is, because that's the example of the church and Christ, but then how do you fit that 700 wives in there?
Well, you also have to keep in mind that, like in the beginning of Ecclesiastes, if you take it that Solomon wrote it, that he was saying that he understood that a lot of what he even did himself wasn't necessarily right, but he did not deny himself any pleasure. Because he was pursuing the depths of his understanding of or whatever. But he said, in all of this, his wisdom remained with him. But it's kind of hard to understand how that can be. But if you really think about it, even as believers, as Christians, we can choose to sin or act outside of God's will or character at some point during the day, another time. But it's not that God's wisdom has left us. It's just that we have chosen.
We're stupid.
Like sheep.
Yeah.
But like we have chosen to act against it, even though we know that we shouldn't be. And I think that's what is pictured here, because he spends so much time on this. This is obviously something that was weighing him down.
That's what I said earlier.
I know.
You squashed.
I was fixing to say that it was such a wise man that just said that.
You're such a filthy. Where's that lying part at? People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his hunger when he is starving. Yet if he is caught, he must pay sevenfold, though it cost him all his wealth, the wealth of his house. But a man who commits adultery has no sense. Whoever does so destroys himself. Blows and disgrace are his lot, and his shame will never be wiped away.
Wow. That's kind of heavy right there. It's interesting, though, because he's painting this picture that even though stealing and adultery are wrong, and both are violation of the Ten Commandments, that he still puts them on this socially determinable scale there, that there's still a justifiable reason
to
for
get
stealing.
A prostitute.
Stealing. There you go. No, for stealing. If the conditions are right, it's just like David said, don't give me too little, though I may turn to stealing, and don't give me too much, I may forget God. Have just enough, be content with what you have. But what if the person does have too little? I mean, it is a test from God to see where his heart is lying, but still, human nature says, I need to provide. I need to do something for my family, do something for, to eat.
Unless you're a sluggard.
Unless you're a sluggard, you want somebody else to do it for you.
Right.
But it's understandably in our mindset, in almost anybody's mindset, we know that it's wrong, but we can justify it. It's a plausible argument to why you did what you did. But when it comes to adultery, it doesn't matter what kind of desire or craving that you have. There really is no justifying why you would do that kind of a violation, how we were supposed to be acting.
So do you think if a man gets desperate enough that stealing's okay? Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say it was okay.
I thought you just said that.
No, I said there was a plausible, I can understand why you would choose to do that.
So you're saying it's okay to steal?
No. Don't trap me in my words. No, it's not okay to steal, but it is understandable why somebody would choose to do that, even though it's not okay. And I can understand emotionally why someone would choose to violate the marriage covenant, but that's still never. I mean, nobody sits back and justifies that and says, "Oh, okay, well, you did good, or you did right in what you thought was right." It's still wrong, and it's still an exaltation of self.
So, when Aladdin steals that loaf of bread,
it was for the monkey.
It was for what is it, Abu?
Abu.
So it's justified. You're saying stealing's okay. So
that's not what I said.
He takes the time to really go into detail about how it will destroy you over and over and over again. So think about the misery that he felt.
I don't know. What about how he ends it in the You said he's never going to be wiped away, but it's for jealousy arouses a husband's fury, and he will show no mercy when he takes revenge. He will not accept any compensation. He will refuse the bribe, however great it is. I wonder what was going on in his life to make him understand this, or really, what if this was a speaking to something more profound, as in the nature of God.
What?
Right here, he says that where the jealousy arouses a husband's fury, and he will show no mercy when he takes revenge. He will not accept any compensation. He will refuse the bribe, however great it is.
So how do you place that into
Deuteronomy? God himself is telling his people that I am a consuming fire. I am Elkanah. I am a jealous God. And it's second Thessalonians. I'll go ahead and turn there. It's 2 Thessalonians, I think it is. You're going to turn there in just a minute.
Well, you can kind of connect the dots for us while you're turning there, because my curiosity's piqued.
Yeah. Well, it's and he says that that all this evidence that God's judgment is right, and as a result, you will be counted worthy of the kingdom of God for which you are suffering. God is just. He will pay back trouble to those who trouble you and give relief to you who are troubled, and to us as well. This will happen when Jesus is revealed from heaven in blazing fire with his powerful angels. See, he will punish those who do not know God and do not obey the gospel of our Lord Jesus. They will be punished with everlasting destruction and shut out from the presence of the Lord and from the majesty of his power on the day he comes to be glorified in his holy people and to be marveled at among all those who have believed. This includes you, because you believed our testimony to you. And I know he's speaking of the other husband, the party that was offended.
Right.
But look at it from, if you see the world and how they treat the church, or what they're doing, they're actually misusing or mishandling God's bride, his wife. And when he comes, he's going to be a jealous and avenging God, and he's going to redeem us. He's going to give us relief, but he's going to pay back vengeance on those who have not accepted. And that's the picture I get there. I mean, if you are committing this sin in the literal sense that he's painting this, you have that threat, that worry to have about. But what if you're committing the sin of not accepting God, not accepting his testimony about Jesus? You're doing the same thing, just as he was calling out his nation many times as being an adulterous people, constantly prostituting themselves out with the nations. It's doing the same thing, and God is going to come. He is going to return one day, and he's going to be a vengeful, wrathful God, and you don't want to be on that side of that. You want to be on the side of the relief of being part of the bride, and the only way to do that is to believe in the testimony of Jesus Christ.
Wow. Like, I totally get that. That's nice. That's very, very brilliant, James. Very brilliant. That's why I have you on this show.
Is that right? Thank you. But I see this in this. It's interluded in Proverbs chapter 5, 6, and 7. They all focus on adultery. Chapter 5, it gives us an overview of what adultery is, of its ramifications. Chapter 6 is what we were just discussing, and it gives us a comparison of adultery, of how it fits or is to be looked at or viewed among other sins. About why is it so devastating? Why is it so bad comparatively? And really, a lot of the things that lead to adultery stem from those 7 things that are detestable to God, which is why oftentimes the only physical thing, apart from carving a graven image or having an idol and stuff like that,
or tattoo,
well, that was not ever called detestable, literally.
No, it was by you.
No,
back
it's
in
not.
episode 3.
That was debatable. But the only really physical side of sin that was detestable in that regard is the way you treated people and sexual perversion. And it's interesting how all this is pointing out, because it's pointing to the way we were created just at the very beginning with Adam and Eve. They were brought together to become one flesh, but to show God's glory in creation. And then chapter 7, which is we'll be getting into, is more of an inspection of adultery, more of an in-depth look about the mechanisms and the effects of that. I think he does a beautiful way of bringing this discussion like full swing. He doesn't leave any aspect of it untouched.
He covers it pretty extensively.
So we'll have one more chapter of the adultery.
Warning against the adulterous woman.
Yep. And that's where I think a lot more of the the ties to Old Testament prophecy, and not necessarily prophecy about Christ, but prophecy about or how God views his children or the nation of Israel, and also the church today as his bride. I think this is that next one, because it really gets into the actual person themselves. And then chapter 8 is going to be interesting. Maybe we can try to get a third wheel in this discussion by then.
Which one is chapter 8? Let me see. Wisdom's Call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who's going to be the third wheel?
I don't know. But in verse 22 in chapter 8, it says, "The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works." And a lot of times it's translated as creation or created things, or the first of his creation. And people want to point to that as being a picture of Christ as well. But that's something that's
just settle down and slow your roll.
Oh, sorry.
We're still in adultery.
Adultery.
What about the people that
adultery always yields forbidden fruit?
Don't have the wisdom to say, okay, I can see this is what the Bible says, but I don't really know if that's true. I'm going to just go ahead and do what I want.
Well, I mean, I guess we need to go back and examine the ramifications about if everybody literally did whatever they wanted.
That's what sin is, though.
Yeah, well, that's what sin is, but really there'll be no way to say that someone else is right or wrong, and then anything that offends you, you can't really, you have no leg to stand on and say that they should stop doing that. Because it's not. I mean, it's not really, nothing is right or wrong outside of God's nature. God is who defines right and wrong, ultimately, and that's how we can pan that out into everyday life. How would you say that? How would you?
What did you say? Pan it out in everyday life?
Pan it out, like work it out. You know, God is in all.
No,
God is all in all.
You just think about all the things that are listed that will take you further away from God, but we do them every day anyway.
Yeah, I don't think I need a list of things to take me away from God. I just need one, me.
Yeah, well,
I'm bad at it.
That's what it centers all around, is you. I know all about it.
Maybe we could discuss how also those frequently, if you've been listening as we've been reading, lamp and light and stuff like that.
I like that.
Has been brought up many times, and it's actually going to be brought up even more even as we get into chapter 8. But
well, I just want to go and tell everybody can't see the studio that we have, and the light that James uses to read the Bible is shining directly in my face, and it is blinding me, and it has been. But I haven't said anything.
I'm trying to make a difference.
I haven't said anything because I don't want to hurt his feelings.
I was just trying to shine a little light on him. My light just does not stay straight. It wants to focus on you because obviously there's something going on. I don't want to touch it though. It's fine.
It's very hot. Well, is that pretty much this chapter 7?
That is the chapter.
Or no, chapter 6. I'm sorry.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 7 is what we're covering next time. If James quit messing with his microphone wire.
I am trying to help you out here. And now, at the very end. There you go.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Now it's a little bit warmer over here. I feel like I'm underneath the inspection lamp.
Well, in closing, I would like to just say, don't reduce yourself to a loaf of bread. Any closing statements from you, James?
Well, unless you try to be like Christ, because he is the bread of life.
No, you just contradicted what I said. Whatever.
No, I don't have any closing statements, but if you like the show, just please leave a comment on YouTube or SoundCloud. Subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. That'd be awesome. And if you have anything you want to pray about or talk about or anything that's on your mind, just give us a shout.
Go ahead and give me your number.
Well, you can always email the Wordlover podcast at AOL.com.
Please do.
And or look us up on YouTube, of course, and catch us on SoundCloud and leave comments and anything you need to do. You've been listening to the Wordlover podcast. I've been your host, James Beasley, here with
Joshua Bunner.
He said that like he
Joshua Bunner.
And we're out.
Just got him off guard. We'll see you next time, folks. All right.
Politicians, morticians, Philistines, homophobes, skinheads, deadheads, tax evaders, street kids, alcoholics, workaholics, wise guys, dimwits, blue collars, white collars, warmongers, peace nicks. Breathe deep the breath of God. Breathe deep the breath of God. Suicidal, drop-cattle, shut-ins, drop-outs, friendless, homeless, penniless, and depressed, residents and residents, foreigners and aliens, dissidents, feminists, xenophobes and chauvinists. Breathe deep the breath